Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
This adventure happened to me around the year 1882. I had just taken the train and sat down in a corner, hoping that I would be left alone. Suddenly, the door opened again and I heard a voice say, "Be careful, sir. We are just at a crossing. The step is very high." Another voice answered, "That's okay, Laurent. I am holding the handle tightly." Then a head appeared, and two hands grabbed the leather straps hanging on each side of the door and slowly pulled up a very big body. The man's feet made a noise like two sticks when they hit the step. When the man had pulled his body into the train, I saw the end of a wooden leg at the bottom of his pants. Soon, I saw another wooden leg. A head appeared behind this traveler and asked, "Are you okay, sir?" "Yes, my boy." "Then here are your bags and crutches." And a helper, who looked like an old soldier, climbed in. He carried many packages wrapped in black and yellow papers and tied carefully. He put each one in the net over his master's head. Then he said, "There, sir. That is all. There are 5 of them: the candy, the doll, the drum, the gun, and the liver pate." "Very good, my boy." "Thank you, Laurent. Good health." The man closed the door and walked away, and I looked at the person next to me. He was about 35 years old, even though his hair was almost white. He wore a ribbon of the Legion of Honor. He had a big mustache and was quite big, like a strong and active man who couldn't move because of some problem. He wiped his forehead, sighed, and, looking right at me, he asked, "Does smoking bother you, sir?" "No, sir." I was sure I knew his eyes, his voice, his face. But when and where had I seen them? I had definitely met that man, talked to him, shaken his hand. That was a long, long time ago. It was lost in the mist where the mind tries to remember but can't catch the memories. He was also looking at me, staring at me, trying hard to remember but not fully. Our eyes, embarrassed by looking at each other for so long, turned away. Then, after a few minutes, pulled together again by our minds trying to remember, our eyes met once more, and I said, "Sir, instead of staring at each other for an hour or so, wouldn't it be better to try to remember where we know each other from?" My neighbor answered kindly, "You are right, sir." I said my name. "I am Henri Bonclair, a judge." He waited for a few minutes. Then, with a look and voice that showed he was thinking hard, he said, "Oh, I remember well. I met you 12 years ago, before the war, at the Poincel's house." "Yes, sir." "Ah, ah, you are Lieutenant Revelier?" "Yes. I was Captain Revelier until I lost my feet, both of them from one cannonball." Now that we knew who each other was, we looked at each other again. I remembered very well the handsome, thin young man who led the dances with so much energy and grace that he was called the Fury. Thinking back to the past, I remembered a story that I had heard and forgotten. It was one of those stories that you hear but forget, and it leaves only a small memory. It was a love story. Slowly, the memories became clear, and I saw the face of a young girl. Then her name came to me like a loud noise. Mademoiselle de Mandel. I remembered everything now. It was indeed a love story, but very simple. The young girl loved this young man, and when I had met them, people were already talking about their wedding. The young man seemed very much in love and very happy. I looked up at the net where all the packages the servant brought in were shaking from the train's movement, and I remembered the servant's voice, as if he had just spoken. He had said, "There, sir, that is all. There are 5 of them: the candy, the doll, the drum, the gun, and the pâté de foie gras." Then, in a second, a whole story appeared in my mind. It was like all the stories I had read, where the young lady got married even though something bad happened, either with money or health. So, this officer who had been hurt in the war had come back, after the war, to the young girl who had promised to marry him, and she kept her promise. I thought that was very beautiful, but simple, just like how we see things in books or plays. It always seems, when we read or hear these stories of big sacrifices, that we could give up everything with happiness and joy. But the next day, when a friend in need asks to borrow money, we often feel differently. But then, another idea, less dreamy and more real, came to my mind. Maybe he had married before the war, before this terrible accident, and she, feeling sad and hopeless, had to take care of, cheer up, and support this husband, who left as a handsome man and came back without his feet, unable to move, angry, and very overweight. Was he happy or in pain? I really wanted to know his story, or at least the main parts, so I could understand what he couldn't or wouldn't tell me. Still thinking about it, I started talking to him. We exchanged a few simple words, and I looked up at the net and thought, he must have 3 children. The candies are for his wife, the doll for his little girl, the drum and the gun for his sons, and the pâté de foie gras for himself. Suddenly, I asked him, "Are you a father, sir?" He answered, "No, sir." I felt embarrassed, like I had made a mistake, and I continued, "I am sorry. I thought you were a father when I heard your servant talking about the toys. We listen and make guesses without thinking." He smiled and then said softly, "No, I am not even married. I am still in the early stage." I pretended to suddenly remember and said, "Oh, that's true. When I knew you, you were engaged to Mademoiselle de Mandel, I believe." "Yes, sir, your memory is very good." I became very brave and added, "I also remember hearing that Mademoiselle de Mandel married Monsieur." He calmly said the name, Monsieur de Fleurel. "Yes, that's it. I remember it was then that I heard about your injury." I looked him in the face, and he blushed. His face, which was already red, turned even redder. He answered quickly, with the sudden energy of a man who is defending something he knows is already lost in his mind and heart, but does not want to admit. "It is wrong, sir, to connect my name with that of Madame de Fleurel. When I came back from the war without my feet, I would never have let her become my wife. Was it possible? When one marries, sir, it is not to show off one's generosity. It is to live every day, every hour, every minute, every second beside a man. And if this man is disfigured, like I am, it is like a death sentence to marry him." "Oh, I understand. I admire all sacrifices and devotions when they have a limit, but I do not think a woman should give up her whole life, all joy, all her dreams, to satisfy others. When I hear, on the floor of my room, the tapping of my wooden legs and my crutches, I get so angry I want to strangle my servant. Do you think I would let a woman do what I myself cannot stand?" And then, do you think my stumps are nice to look at? He was quiet. What could I say? He was certainly right. Could I blame her? Look down on her? Or say she was wrong?
No.
But the end of the story, which was true, did not satisfy my wish for a beautiful story. These heroic stories need a big, beautiful sacrifice, which seemed to be missing, and I felt a bit disappointed. I suddenly asked, "Does Madame de Fleurel have any children?" "Yes, one girl and two boys. I am bringing these toys for them. She and her husband are very kind to me." The train was going up the hill to Saint-Germain. It passed through the tunnels, entered the station, and stopped. I was about to offer my arm to help the injured officer get down when two hands reached up to him through the open door. "Hello, my dear Revelier."
Ah,
"Hello, Fleurel." Standing behind the man, the woman, still beautiful, was smiling and waving her hands to him. A little girl, standing beside her, was jumping for joy, and two young boys were eagerly watching the drum and the gun, which were being passed from the train into their father's hands. When the injured man was on the ground, all the children kissed him. Then they walked away, the little girl holding the small, shiny part of a crutch, just as she might hold her big friend's thumb.